to Lex Reads. So in today's video, I want to talk about books that were mentioned in TV shows. Particularly, these are TV shows that I grew up watching and really did love. For me growing up, I was not a reader at all, like couldn't stand it, but I was an avid TV watcher, an avid movie watcher. And growing up for me, I never had no book in my hand or a pencil, notebook, no. Some of the books and like events that I have learned has come from TV and movies, which I mean, look, the power of media, okay? But I just want to share a couple with you. And so first is The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. I mean, come on. If you're a kid of the 90s, I know you watch The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. Personally, I would say I haven't finished all the series. I haven't finished the whole series. I do know what happened. I finished all of the first season, and then I've seen, episodes from other seasons. I like when, look, the dark skin Auntie Viv is on there. She's only for third seasons. I believe the pilot episode, don't quote me on these episodes too, but I do believe either the pilot episode, I know it's the first season, he mentions the book Malcolm X, and he's like arguing with Uncle Phil, talking about like, you don't know my lifestyle, you don't know where I came from. And he like, boy, be quiet. I wasn't always wealthy. I didn't have this. I had to really work for it. He had a very humble beginning if you do watch the series, but he did mention Malcolm X. Next is one of my favorite shows of all times, which is The Jeffersons. And when I tell y'all, I learned so much watching The Jeffersons. I'm old school. I've always been old school. But back in the day, in the 90s, they used to have, which I think they still do, TV Land, and they used to have Nick at Night. If y'all remember Nick at Night, they used to have Nick at Night, and they would have all the good black shows. And then after that, they just tore it up. In the first season, there was an episode of when Weezy's uncle, yes, came to visit them. He was a former butler, and he was moving back to the South. And George, of course, is making fun of him and, calling him Uncle Tom. Of course, they mentioned this book, Uncle Tom's Cabin by Harriet Beecher Stowe. I read this book because of The Jeffersons, you guys. George is making fun of, the uncle, and he asked him, do you even know who Uncle Tom is and why we use that term? In Uncle Tom's Cabin, the term Uncle Tom, it was a model for a man named Josiah Henson, who was an enslaved person that walked from Kentucky to Canada, I believe, with his family. They opened the first trade school for, enslaved people. And I mean, a pioneer at his right. He told George at the end, I would never call you Uncle Tom because there's no way that you have the courage, the perseverance, the smarts to even be Uncle Tom. So it's kind of like, it's a compliment to be called Uncle Tom, basically. When you do, get into the nitty gritty, that's what he was saying. But they mentioned this book. Another book that they mentioned, I believe it also was the first season, was Les Mis by Victor Hugo. I thought I had that book, but I guess I don't. I remember when that movie came out. There's so many versions of it, but the newest one where, what's her name? Anne Hathaway won an Academy Award. I wanted to read it before I saw the movie. This is before I was like a reader, and I realized Les Mis is like over 800 pages. So I'm like, yeah, girl, now. They did mention that book because Tom, he is a editor. I know he did work in publishing. He talked about that book because George wanted to know, did you come across a story about like a person stealing? They want to tell him the scenario was about him when he was younger. He stole some perfume. He wanted to give his mother that for Christmas, and of course they're poor. He served like a little time in like a juvenile center or something like that. Next is, now this is my favorite show of all times. I know that the person that I'm going to be mentioning is kind of controversial, but I'm sorry, y'all. It is The Cosby Show. I have seen every episode of that series. Love it so much. Love the characters, love the actors, all of it. And they mentioned some books in the series. So the first one they mentioned was Moby Dick, which I don't have Moby Dick. I ain't never read it. I don't plan on reading it. Yeah, okay. It was when Theo was I believe when he was in college, because he went to NYU. Look how I'm talking about these people like they real people. But yeah, he went to NYU, and him and Claire were talking about the book, and he was really like, dissecting it. And she was really impressed because you guys know Theo, he was dyslexic. Another book that was mentioned was Their Eyes Are Watching God by Zora Neale Hurston. It was, I believe, the third season. It was when Denise went away to Hillman, and she really struggled. She only went there, what, 2 years, was it? But her freshman year, she struggled. In that episode, she came home. Look, she had dropped one class, and then she had, what, two D's and a C. You guys know the Huxtable kids, they weren't dumb kids at all. But she just didn't know how to kind of navigate the college, you're freshman in college, you're learning everything. So Claire's like, look, I'm gonna help you. We're gonna organize your schedule. We're gonna get you back on track. And she gets a chance to rewrite the paper. Her professor is like, you can rewrite the paper, and her mom helps her. The paper is about Their Eyes Are Watching God. Lastly, Macbeth and Julius Caesar, which is by Shakespeare. Only Shakespeare plays I have read was Romeo and Juliet. It was required reading for 9th grade. And then my 10th grade year, I read Taming of the Shrew. I like Romeo and Juliet, and I like Taming of the Shrew. The way that Cockroach and Theo, the way that they studied for them, especially Julius Caesar, it made me really want to read the play, because they made a song with it for them to remember, the whole synopsis. I'll put the video down in the description box if I can find it, because Cockroach and Theo, they would always make up a song, with their assignments or whatever. So yeah. And then you guys remember the episode with Macbeth. He didn't read. What did he do? He got Cleveland notes, which is kind of like our Spark notes, and because he didn't read it, and he had like a test the next day, and he got a record. He got the play on vinyl, but it didn't work out for him and Cockroach. Denise told him, "You gonna need Cleveland notes, Go down to, NYC bookstore, get y'all some Cleveland notes." So he did that, but then Claire was like, "Oh, no, you reading this place. Like, I will test you, and you best believe nothing is going to be covered by Cleveland notes." But little do he know, she said, "I ain't read Macbeth in over 20 years, so she kind of rusty." But yes, those were the two plays by Shakespeare that was mentioned in the Cosby Show. Next is Moesha. Now, y'all know Moesha, she always wrote in her diary. She wanted to be a writer. And season 2, there was an episode with Janet, is it Dubois? She was, what's her name? Willona. Yeah, Willona and Good Times. And in that episode of Moesha, she was a writer. Moesha had to go over there for like punishment, basically. But she learned that she was a writer, and she was a writer during the Harlem Renaissance. And she also helped Langston Hughes and Zora Neale Hurston, type their manuscript. So first she talked about a literary magazine that came out in the 20s, and it's called Fire. And the main person that put this together was Wallace Thurman. He is the one that wrote Blacker the Berry. And you have him, he published stories. You have Richard Bruce Nugent. Who else? Langston Hughes, Zora Neale Hurston. And I was able to get a copy from Amazon, but y'all, look how they did me. Okay, wait. So it's a literary magazine, and it was only about maybe 30 to 40 pages. So this is where it starts, right? Or not even 50 pages, like maybe 30. But the way that they printed this out, it's like a textbook in Spanish of, I don't even know what it is, but it says Fire on there, and it says devoted to younger Negro artists. But it starts right here. And again, I got this from Amazon. I don't know what, the way they printed this was really odd, but they did mention Fire. And then she mentioned Zora Neale Hurston. She also mentioned Langston Hughes, and she mentioned the poem A Dream Deferred. And I have, and Langston Hughes is one of my favorite poets, and I do have this collection. It's the complete poems of Langston Hughes. Now, this, you guys, is really good. If you really want to get into Langston Hughes, I would say get this. First of all, it's only $21. This is all of his poetry. I mean, everything. They have things that were published, things that were not published, you know, first time ever being published. Again, if you guys really are trying to get into his works or just really want it, this is a collection that you should have. Next is Girlfriends. I remember when Girlfriends premiered, you guys. I was 9 years old when Girlfriends premiered. Watch used to come on Monday nights at 9, and then they used to do reruns, and they used to come on at 3 o'clock and 3:30, and I would get home at like 2:45. Oh my gosh, Girlfriends it's one of my favorite. My favorite girlfriend is Toni Childs. And I would say next, when I was younger, it was Toni Childs, Maya, Joan, and Lynn. I think now it's Toni Childs. It's a mix between now Joan, then Maya, and then Lynn was always the last for me. There was an episode on the 3rd season, I believe. It was called Books, Lies, and Sex or something like that. And it's the episode where you guys know that Joan, who was played by Tracee Ellis Ross, she is an associate. She is a junior partner at a law firm. She's a lawyer. And her new boss, or her new senior partner, is a woman named Sharon, Black woman. And it's a little, I don't know what it is. It's she like criticizes her, but like tries to help her. I don't know what it is. Sharon is just like that, if you guys have watched the series. But she's like, I'm part of a, book club. You will really benefit, it's intellectual Black women. I want you to get to know these women. And she hosts it. And the book that they were reading is called The Emperor of Ocean Park by Stephen L. Carter. Never read it before, and I looked it up, and it is by a Black author. Never heard of this author before, so I am going to dig even more and just see what this book is about and if he has more books. But that book was mentioned in Girlfriends. Next is A Different World. I mean, come on now, A Different World. I personally like the first season. I haven't watched the whole series. I haven't finished the whole series. Again, I know what happened. I've watched the whole first season because Denise was on the first season. And my favorite Cosby kid is Denise. And next will probably be Vanessa, because Vanessa just Vanessa just entertains me, the things that she did. Denise has always been my favorite. But I would say out of the series of Different World, my favorite probably is Whitley. Come on now, it's Whitley. But in the 6th season, they mentioned Waiting to Excel by Terry McMillan. It actually was a book club. That's the students with what's her name, Jada Pinkett Smith. When she was on there, she was what, Lena, and I forgot the other girl. Again, I don't know them later kind of characters. I do know the Jaleesa and Whitley and Dwayne. I know, look, them. I don't know like the later characters, but they were talking about this book, and it was a book club. I believe there is a clip of it on YouTube. I'll also put it in the description box so you guys can see it. But they talked about this book. And then also, I believe on season 6, there was an episode about the history of the mammy, character stereotype and all of that. And I believe Whitley did not want, what was her name? Kim? What was her roommate named Kim? She didn't want her to, I guess, showcase and things like that. And they're like, no, people need to know about this history. Of course, it's demeaning and horrible, but unfortunately, it happened. And in the beginning of her presentation, she mentions a poem by Paul Laurence Dunbar called We Wear the Mask. And you guys know Paul Laurence Dunbar is one of my favorite poets of all time. Then she goes through this whole other presentation. Again, I'll put that clip down in the description box. Yes, those 2 books were mentioned. So yeah, guys, that is it when it comes to books that are mentioned in television series. Now that I've done this, It's making me want to watch and finish the whole series of, some of these shows. Like, again, haven't watched the whole series of A Different World, which I'm like, now they have it on Max. If you have Max, they have it on there. Then also Fresh Prince. I haven't finished all of Fresh Prince, nor have I finished all the episodes of Moesha, which isn't Moesha, that's on Netflix, isn't it? Again, it's making me want to go through these. Yeah, guys, that's all I have for you, and I'll be back with more Black books. Bye.